Good morning, gearheads. Welcome to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM for our post-qualifying show for the Belgian Grand Prix. We just watched Lando Norris take the pole over his teammate. This is Jon Massengale, and I'm joined by Jonathan Green. Chris Medland's going to join us here in a few minutes. Bob Varsha is not going to be with us today, but I'll start with you, of course. Jonathan, what do you think? Lando Norris looked quick, didn't he?
Yeah, pretty impressive. It was a weird sort of watching the sector times. It was like I thought Russell had it, but he lost so much time in the mid sector. But those McLarens are pretty unbeatable right now. And yeah, Verstappen complaining. I think the track went away for all of them, starting with Verstappen, we often see those last attempts all quicker, but this time not so be. So
Yeah. And I was watching those sector times, and Lando looked quicker in sector two, quite a bit actually on that last run. He was almost a half a second quicker in the second sector two. But yeah, obviously Max Verstappen. But we'll talk about the sprint race too today. But Max Verstappen with the sprint earlier today, but he definitely lost something, and looks like he lost it right in that first sector coming out of Lacombe, the first corner.
yeah, yeah, I think so. No question about it. Not well, they said it all weekend that the Red Bull is good here, but it doesn't think it's going to be a match, and they've got upgrades. I'm amazed at the upgrades. That's been the big story for me, is how many people have brought upgrades to a sprint weekend, and we're not. We talked at the beginning of the season about how there wouldn't be upgrades much after the halfway point of the season. Well, we're past that. So I am surprised.
Yeah. It is a little surprising, and I was a little worried about Ferrari's upgrades, but Leclerc being having a great lap there in the final moments and grabbing P3. But we got to talk about Lewis Hamilton. What a disaster weekend for him. I mean, out in both Q1s for both the sprint and the Grand Prix, and just a mistake right there at the top of Raidillon.
Yeah, I mean, you could. It was explained quite well by Martin about how you're trying to manage the tires and not sort of rough them up, because that's a very fast part of the circuit. So if you could straight line it a bit, you may not take as much wear out of the tires. But everybody knows the track limits. People have been falling foul of them, and yeah, I mean, sprint race aside, that problem, this one was definitely all in the hands of Lewis. You can't, and he took it quite well, and took the blame, as it were, which is good. But I would argue that because he did get into eighth, it was cancelled. So actually, the upgrades to Ferrari, this rear suspension, clearly have done something. Put it this way, because this is not an easy track to be performative at, if you've got problems with the car.
Yeah. And boy, what a nice showing from the Racing Bulls today with both Hadjar and Lawson. And they were neck and neck the whole Q3 qualifying, with Hadjar just a few, couple of hundredths over Lawson.
Yeah, I think you could pretty much say that the jostling around behind the scenes at both Red Bull and RB has at least settled down at the disruption of losing Horner, etc., etc. It could go both ways. You can have a real lack of confidence and people making mistakes they don't usually make because their eyes off the ball. But I think Lauren Mekies could be particularly happy with the sprint race win. And likewise, as you say, Hadjar and Lawson, and I'm pleased for both of them. They are, I still think, outperforming what I expected from them. But then again, this RB car is better than we expected. I also thought it was interesting, during the qualifying. They interviewed Yuki, and he was quite interesting about what he said. He seems to be getting on top of it.
Yeah. And look, a nice run from Alex Albon in
Great
P5 in
run.
qualifying. Yeah. Unfortunate for his teammate Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, not had a good weekend so far. He and Sainz and Hamilton are the ones probably not enjoying today.
And Antonelli also. I mean, that's also
Ah,
disappointing. That's the first time Antonelli's out in Q1 since his debut this year back in Australia. So yeah.
Yeah, we forget how new to all this he is. But no, that's the poor bit of form. But I wouldn't knock him too much on that. There's a lot going on, whether he likes it or not. Asking about his contract and all the rest of it. It's that time. Everybody's in the pressure cooker. I think we now know what's going on now, and I think things will settle down a little bit. But the sort of scare of Red Bull losing Verstappen, which may still happen, but I don't think this year. I think it might next when he's had a look at the form book. But I don't. I think things will stay as is, which means Antonelli will keep his gig at Mercedes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, Greeny, we got to be excited. This is Spa. This is the track that so many people and so many drivers just list as their favorite. I think you probably have to, any poll that I've ever seen, Spa is always either at the top or near the top for so many people. I love what Lewis Hamilton said. Did you see what he said? He said, because it's the longest track on the circuit, right? I mean, on the calendar. And he said, this circuit is like you're going somewhere, like you're traveling somewhere, not just going in circles. I thought, what a great quote about Spa.
That's about right. Yeah, because you do you drift off into the hills there, and then you drop off the top of the hill after the Kemmel Straight, and it just goes down and down and down and down and down. And then you get to the bottom of the river valley, the Eau Rouge Valley, and you have that long back part with Blanchiment and down to the bus stop. And yeah, I've been there many times, and it's just an amazing place to be. And as Lewis says, it feels like an adventure every lap.
Yeah, you say many times. When's the last time you've been to Spa?
Ooh, I did F.
Been a
Oh,
few
that's
years.
probably about 10 years ago. I did F1 movies there. We were doing the commentary or F1, yeah, F1 in cinema we called it. And so we had our own TV set up outside of F1 TV, and did our own commentary. I was actually our commentary booth was right by the bus stop. It's pretty cool.
Well, I did. I sort of went there earlier this week because I got on a really amazing simulator that was one of those kinds that where you get into the body of a like a Formula car and had the multiple screens and got to do about 4 laps. And yeah, it was pretty amazing, honestly. That was a treat to get to do that. But all right, well, I'm checking the clock. Let's do a quick break. And when we come back, we'll probably get Chris Medland joining us here momentarily, and we'll be back after these messages. All right, let's check in on YouTubers. I don't even have it up right now, but I'll get it up there here real quick. See what the boys and girls are doing out there. Yeah, Bob Varsha is not going to be with us, guys. He is not. He was going to try. He may try to get on the Grand Prix pre or post tomorrow, but more than likely not.
Ricardo Carvana is
Mute that. All right, let's see what we got here. Andy P. There's it. There's Andy. We knew he would be here with Lando and on pole. Andy P says Lando sets up well for tomorrow. Insane middle sector. Yeah, Andy. We were talking about that earlier. Kevin Kelly's here. He said Hamilton has just had bad luck, but I mean, yeah, I mean they are going for that, but he would definitely got all 4 off there. At least, they were talking about Jonathan. I from the view that I saw, I couldn't really see all 4 off, but
What, for science or for
for
Hamilton?
Hamilton.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was.
Joe Voister Bay's here. He says, how many plank penalties for tomorrow? Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Good point, Andy P. He says if Verstappen's jumping ship, it's probably going to be 27 because his exit clause gets easier for him then. Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, this race is a key milestone in his exit clause. If he's below 4th in the championship standings or something, it's either 3rd or 4th. It must be 4th. If he's below 4th, I think is what it was. I'm sure Andy or somebody will correct me, but yeah, that was that probably doesn't look like it's going to come into play. Andy says Lewis clearly not liking the Ferrari upgrades. Yeah, I mean the weekend. Or all right, here we go, coming back.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. We were watching the Spa qualifying earlier, and I'm going to run down the whole session results because we haven't done that fully yet. So Lando Norris on pole, followed by his teammate Oscar Piastri, followed by the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Exciting for them. Then Max Verstappen with a little bit of a disappointing final run there. Then Alex Albon on the Williams, George Russell in the Mercedes, Yuki Tsunoda, nice, finished P7th. Isaac Hadjar and Liam Lawson, 8 and 9. Bortoleto up in 10th. Nice run for him. Ocon, Behrman, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Sainz, Hamilton down in 16th. Colapinto, Antonelli, Alonso, and Stroll with the 2 Aston Martins bringing up the rear. Boy, that's not a bad thing to talk about, Jonathan. Pretty disappointing for the Aston Martin team right now.
I really can't put a finger on where they are this season. And frankly, that means that they're nowhere, if you know what I mean. If you can't put a sort of like a weekend where you go, yeah, they were really competitive there, or they started showing signs of, Alonso's been scoring points. But it's just, it's been weird. It's been a weird season for Aston Martin. I wonder if they're saving their powder, or am I just being sort of poetic by saying that? I.e., in other words, it looks as though things will get better in 26 because everything's going that way. They've got a team, they've got the investment, they've got the facilities, everything, all the people, but we're not seeing it on the track at the moment.
Yeah, and all the people, including Adrian Newey.
Yeah.
And, when you hear the interviews from Alonso or anybody with the team, there is that upbeat feeling. And I think a lot of that has to do with Adrian Newey and the other thing, the investment in the team and all that. But yeah, you're right. It's been a strange year. You never know where they're going to be. But let's talk about the uniqueness of this track, right? You have such high speed. You've got, it's a long track. And of course, we could get some weather tomorrow. But the point with that is that Aston Martin, this is just not a track that's suiting them so far, it looks like.
Doesn't seem to be. No, and I like I said, I can't put my finger on it. It's not straight line speed. It could be medium to high speed corners, which there are a lot of, where they're struggling. I don't know. Or is it straight line speed in that run down to Blanchimont? I mean, that sector 2 is where it seems there's a lot of time made up and time lost. So who knows? It's an interesting one, but I'm technically I'd like to kind of dig into that, or at least look at the press releases I get and see what the boffins say, because I can't tell you right now what's going on with them, and they're better than last place at the moment, I think.
Yeah. So Bortoleto down in 10th. I was thinking, they've been obviously with Hulkenberg last race was just amazing, and having not good results today. But Bortoleto, I mean, you get some good momentum for the Sauber team, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've been keeping a close eye on all the rookies, and obviously led by Hadjar, really. Lawson's bounced back, I think, very well after troubled waters, as it were. Antonelli, like I said, I've got no criticism today outside of today. He's going good. But this is the first time in a while we've really seen Bortoleto shine. We've seen it in races when he was fighting with Alonso, etc., etc. But in qualifying, that's the best I've seen him. And there's clearly a confidence in the team.
All right. Well, I hear Chris Medland's microphone out in Spa-Francorchamps. Chris Medland, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, thanks, crew. I'm just trying to pick out where I should place myself for this show because, as anyone who watched the TV coverage would have seen, we've got a split paddock and you've got to pick high or low if you're going to try and doorstep people. So I'm currently in the sunshine, which I'll mention now because I don't think we'll get it tomorrow, up near the broadcast pen, seeing who we might be able to snag for the walk back downstairs.
Oh, nice.
That's my first question, Chris. What's it looking like for tomorrow?
So the latest forecast that I've looked at, and I've been using the FIA's weather tracker for this one, is that it's going to be heavy rain, well, steady rain is a better term, for the morning, like up to lunchtime. And then from lunchtime onwards, we might get some heavier bits, but then breaks in the rain. And the afternoon looks like it might rain, it might not rain, but if it does rain, it will be heavy showers. So I think it's most likely we're going to get a wet race, but it does have that uncertainty compared to, I think, the junior races earlier in the day, in the morning, almost guaranteed to be wet.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what you expect with Spa anyway, right? Seems like there's always a shot at rain for the race. So, yeah. Well, Chris, we were just running down talking about all the stories from qualifying. Lando Norris, I don't know why it surprised me just a little bit that Lando was faster than Piastri and Verstappen. Obviously, I thought Verstappen would be a little quicker today too, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting one with what Red Bull went to do because they learned from Silverstone. So the way they ran the car in sprint qualifying yesterday and then in the sprint today was very low downforce. So they had great top speed. And that's what meant actually the gap was bigger to McLaren in qualifying yesterday, but it allowed Verstappen to take the lead and win the sprint today because he had the top speed to overtake on the first lap. And then he had the top speed to hold off the quicker cars from then on out, even though the McLaren was quicker in the middle sector. It couldn't use that advantage because it was behind another car. Then, with the forecast of potential rain, they've put more downforce on the Red Bull. And I think that brought it closer in raw pace, but not quite close enough. I think we just saw the true difference really between the two cars over what is a long lap. But the flip side is it's because at Silverstone, they'd gone low downforce, got the car on pole position, but then it rained and you don't want low downforce in the rain. So they weren't willing to have that problem again. And that's why they played it a little bit safer with the Red Bull approach. So that was kind of what I expected. I was just surprised by Leclerc actually pipping Verstappen. But didn't see that coming. I didn't think the Ferrari had that pace at all. Really hadn't seen the fruits of their upgrade. But at the same time, I must add here, like we had just one practice session. So a big upgrade like Ferrari brought, rear suspension and all the different setup options that they get from that. You're not going to learn everything about it that quickly. As I walk past, Nico Hulkenberg's off to see the stewards because of a very strange incident, wasn't there, in the pit lane?
Yeah.
With Lance Stroll. He's just going now with the Sauber team manager. But yeah, it was a bit of a surprise in the sense of Leclerc being up there. Norris, I think we've seen it's in there. He just doesn't always put it together cleanly. And I guess that's where I can understand surprise that no one was really thinking he would pull it out the bag. Because more often than not, he just seems to make a little mistake somewhere that means he doesn't fulfill his potential. But no, he put it together really, really well, I thought. I thought that was just a sign of the pace that was in there. And Oscar actually was one who made a slight mistake himself.
Yeah, and if you missed the very beginning of qualifying, what Chris was talking about was Nico Hulkenberg was trying to fight his way into the line out to go out to the track, and he just eased into Lance Stroll at about a half a mile an hour and clipped his front wing and had to replace his wing.
That seems such a waste, doesn't it?
I know.
Yeah, expensive and one of the most pathetic crashes I think I've ever seen. So that was, I hate that rule. I hate the way they are allowed to crawl out in the pit lane and go so slowly. And something needs changing in terms of the regulations to allow drivers just to go out at the speed they want to go out at and to do an outlap without crawling in the way that they do. Well, that's how I prefer it.
And watching it happen, almost like slow motion, and then the parts fall on the ground, and Lance Stroll come on the radio and says, Hulkenberg just ran into me. It was comical, the whole thing. You're right, Chris. It's not representative of Formula One, is it?
No, it's not. Pinnacle motorsport, and you see that. But hey ho, at least it's something to laugh about, at least for us now. Maybe not for the I was going to say the mechanics, but it's more probably the accountants who will be looking at how expensive it was, such a slow speed crash for Sauber having to fix the front wing.
Yeah. Hey, we were talking about Aston Martin and where they are today, 19th and 20th, not good. And we were just talking about what a weird season, kind of hard to call where they are. But why do you think they're not where they need to be today?
To be honest, I don't know today. Like they've been bringing upgrades regularly. They've been working, and I've been generally impressed by the direction of Aston Martin. We've had Andy Cowell, haven't we, on a couple of our wheel-to-wheel shows recently, explaining the work that's been going on, and you could kind of see momentum building there. Double points in Silverstone, they looked good. They have a weakness with the car, they say, but that was more in terms of overheating tyres and wearing them out too much, which you shouldn't therefore see a problem during qualifying from that. But I'm at a loss on that front, and I'm close enough to the Aston Martin motorhome right now. I'll go and see if I can see Andy Cowell inside, but I imagine he's deep in debrief, and even if he's not, this is one of those days when you'd be amazed if someone wants to talk to you and explain why they were so bad.
Yeah. Well, hey, while you do that, Johnny Green, Haas F1 had a nice sprint outing, nice points haul. What was it, 6 points? But a little disappointing here to finish P11 and 12 in qualifying for the Grand Prix.
I hate to say it, and I don't want to jinx them, but my word, they had an impressive Silverstone. I know they went out, but still they looked on good speed. And again, this tricky track, we've already mentioned it, that they're performing, and the sprint race is evidence of that. Both Ocon and Behrman look really, really good. Behrman got unlucky in his qualifying. But generally speaking, what a turnaround, post Steiner, much as we love Gunter, what a job AO is doing. And, they're fighting for 5th in the championship.
Yeah, it's super tight in that whole group right now. They're like, I don't know, 6 or 8 points between like 4 teams. So, Chris, what's going on? Are you getting close to anybody at Aston Martin?
Well, no, there was no sign of Cal, and they're a bit sly. They've got a very reflective set of windows, so I had to just stick my head in and do that awkward thing. Is once I couldn't see him, just disappear again before anyone asked me, what are you doing right now? But I've wandered further down the paddock because I wanted to go nearer Williams. You were just mentioning actually the fight that Haas are in, and I was looking up at the Haas end and didn't see Ao Komatsu. But I thought I'd go to the Williams end of the paddock because if James Vowles is around, Alex Albon put in a lap at the end of that qualifying session, didn't he? P5.
Yeah.
To jump Russell and jump Tsunoda as well. And we kind of thought it was over. We thought the session was done. And then suddenly saw that lap from Albon. So I'd like to get something from Vowles if he's around, but I don't spot him right now. But I do know where the newest team principal on the grid is. And Laurent Mekies has just gone into Mercedes. Now, I don't think I ever saw Christian Horner do that. So first race weekend, straight across the enemy lines.
Yeah,
but
what's going on?
I don't know. There must obviously have been a reason. So I just thought I would.
Doesn't he have to sign off Verstappen's contract?
We could get into that whenever you guys want, but I don't think that's going to happen for a little while yet. I think if that move's coming, it's in 27. And I think Max just sits, and I think he's told everyone he needs to tell that this is, I might be on the market next year. Don't sign people that close off the options, and then he'll take his pick as such, or as close as he can, to which team he wants to race for. That's my theory.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%, and I've been following everything you've written. Maybe that's why I think that, but I said the same. I said he's just going to look at the field, look at who's competitive after 26, and make a decision then. And that's what he's told Toto, is that Toto could have, potentially could have first option on him, and he's interested in jumping ship, but he needs to see performance.
Yeah, don't forget that the Mercedes power unit's in the back of the McLaren, and that's the car that's winning. The Mercedes isn't. So next year, what's to say that won't be the same scenario? So he'll want to see not only that engine is good, but that Mercedes are doing better as a overall team.
Yeah, and we don't know what's going to happen at Red Bull. I mean, Horner was the head of powertrains, and now they're going into the dark with Ford a little bit and their own powertrain. I think he's also interested on seeing how that goes.
Yep. All right, guys, let's get a quick break in, and when we come back, we'll have more with Chris Medland live in Spa, and we'll continue to break all down qualifying after this. All right, I was waffling about the constructor standings because on F1.com right now, they all show 0 points. So I was going to go look on another website because the constructor standings are so close. I can't keep that in my brain. Let's see if ESPN has it. All right, there's drivers. Let's see, constructors. I'm assuming they're up to date. Let's see if they got Spa in here. So Haas with 35, Aston Martin 36, Racing Bulls 37, Sauber 41, and Williams 62. So that's how close that went. Hell, Alpine with 19 and 10th. So
where have you gone to get that? Because you're right, they're all 0, aren't they?
Yeah, the F1 website is all zeroed out. Yeah, I just went to ESPN's. I just Googled it and just ESPN standings. So, yeah, 5th through 10th really I mean, an upgrade or two all the way across, that could completely shuffle for sure. 6 through 10.
I still count fifth in there. I mean, Williams did bring an upgrade here, which clearly has done something given where Albon's qualified, but that's their first one in a while, and they felt that their form was going to be strongest at the start of the year and tail off the way they were approaching the season. So they're there for catching. They're a bit of a carrot for the other teams.
Yeah. Hey, a quick bit of business. Casey, we don't have any live reads, right? I see the Oracle spots. Okay, cool. All right. What else? Let's check in on YouTube. Kevin Kelly, anyone want to buy a slightly used Aston Martin hat? Come on, Kevin. Just give it another week. Hold on, buddy.
Slightly used Aston car.
Aston hat, not car.
Oh.
No, not I don't think Kevin's dumping his Aston Martins that got in the barn. All right, here we go.
I'm George Russell, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. We are basking in the glow of a nice, exciting qualifying at Spa, the iconic track that it is. And we've kind of run up and down the grid, but I want to go back to the top and talk about Lando Norris and his lap, because Chris, you weren't with us. And when we first started the show, and I was just, I was a little bit surprised. I guess I shouldn't have been, but that he was faster than Piastri. I think because, like we talked about on Wheel to Wheel, it hasn't been Lando's favorite track.
It hasn't. He's had his moments. He's extremely quick here, but then you're right. He's made mistakes when he's been in those positions. I think back to, I want to say 2021, where it might have been 2020, but I think it was 21. When he was extremely fast, and then he had a huge accident in qualifying in the wet. I think it's the day that George Russell ended up second on the grid. And yeah, you just suddenly saw this great potential, but it wasn't delivered on. So I think that does sometimes, dare I say it, worry when you think, can Lando put it all together? But there's been changes made to that car. That's making him more confident in it, in the way it handles. So, maybe it is all coming together, dare I say it, slowly, which doesn't have long for it to come together. But another thing we've got to say, I believe it was on the Sky Sports coverage, but they were pointing out the differences in qualifying yesterday between the two McLaren drivers. And it was the fact that I believe Oscar changed down a gear between two corners where Lando didn't, was gaining him a load of time. And obviously the two drivers, whether that was the exact example that I've got right or not, that sort of data the drivers get to look at, and they get to analyze what each other's doing and piece it together, and they learn from each other. So if Oscar's doing a better job at the start, well, by the time that you get to Q3 after 3 sessions of running, 1 practice and then 2 competitive ones, they've learned a lot about each other and what is the quickest way to get around here, and then it gives them both a good chance to execute. So I'm not massively surprised. I just think that we've also seen the example today, haven't we? Pole isn't everything here. It's a dangerous spot to be in many ways. You can easily get slipstreamed past at the start on this track.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, speaking of the differences in the drivers, are they still running? Are they now currently running the same exact configuration or that you know of? Because at one point, Oscar was holding back a little bit using an older setup.
So I would need to find out from McLaren, but they were actually quite open at saying it's up to the drivers what they're most comfortable with. What they've done is provided different options, and it's what suits them best. And that was one of the things with the front suspension that Lando was maybe getting a better feeling from a new offering that they could bring in the last few races. And Oscar was happier with the previous one. So he was more likely to stick with it. But I don't know if he feels that if the newer one might be quicker, therefore he's going to make a change and follow that, because racing drivers being racing drivers, they're going to want the quickest equipment regardless. They'll find a way of adapting if they can. But no, I'm not too certain. I think, to be fair to McLaren, they've kind of said to the drivers, you'll get your choice. Yeah, we'll give you all this stuff. You guys pick. It's open to you. We're not going to force anything on you. We're not going to tell you what you have to run and what you don't have to run. It's your driver feeling preference.
Yeah. Hey, Jonathan, we touched on Antonelli, and I want to get you too, Chris. it seems like, he started out of the gates this year just amazing, right? We were thinking, wow, he really is. He was so highly regarded coming into this season, but he's kind of lost a little momentum. And if I had to pick the top performing rookie, I mean, today is a great example looking at where Isaac Hadjar is. But going back to Antonelli, what's going on with him in your mind, Jonathan? Then I'll go to you, Chris.
I think the reality of where he is, he comes in as a new boy with no expectations, fresh faced. He's been molded into this position, so he's ready for it. But the reality of what's happened in the last 3 weeks with Max suddenly showing up, and talk of him being pushed off to Alpine if Max decided to go to Mercedes. That reality of the precariousness of being an F1 driver may just have crept in a little bit. I'm clasping at straws because I obviously don't know. Chris will put me right, but that's one theory, that he's off a little bit because the reality is that he's in the middle of a maelstrom. The first question in the press conference was, that's the $1 million question. He said, where am I going to be? And he said, is that how much you're getting paid? So there's pressure.
Chris?
Yeah, there's definitely pressure. That is true. And I do think he's learning to handle that. But that's one of the areas that I must say, I think Mercedes have been really good with Antonelli, is trying to relieve that pressure and take it off him and make sure that he's not feeling it. But there was something really interesting. I actually got to speak to him on Thursday this week for a magazine feature. And he was saying that, weirdly, he thinks he's been helped when he's been racing at tracks that he didn't know. So he's been coming to the European circuits more recently into this part of the season and expecting more out of himself because he knows the circuits. And he's coming in thinking he can hit the ground running, he can be pushing that bit harder because he knows the track already. And in doing that, he's then been making a few mistakes, or he's just been not giving himself the time as a rookie to build up the weekend in the same way that he did when he was going to tracks that he'd never driven on before at the start of the season, and new places in the Middle East that, okay, he might have tested on, but he'd never done a race weekend on. So he was very much kind of thinking he had his approach wrong. And he's very self-critical and analytical of what he does. And he seems to think, now I look back on it, and actually I've been going about this all wrong. I've been trying too hard, or expecting too much, or pushing too hard at the places where in my head I'm going to be good, because you can't guarantee that. You still need to take the same approach, the same methodology every race weekend in reality. So I thought that was quite good self-awareness from him. But weirdly, he says it and you kind of believe him. You're like, yeah, that's really good. And then, of course, this weekend starts and he doesn't deliver on, even if he has changed that approach, he doesn't deliver on it, and he has trouble. So I'm not too sure if we're going to see a quick turnaround in that sense from him, because I just think the Mercedes looks such a tough car to drive. There's weekends it looks great, and then there's weekends it looks absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Chris, any shot at getting anybody out there? Where are you now?
So I've parked myself straight outside Mercedes, because now I have learned that Laura Mekies is in there having a meeting with Toto Wolff. Now, I don't know how long that will be, but I thought I might try and grab him on the way out, because he'll have to walk back to the Red Bull hospitality unit and he'll be unguarded. There'll be no press officers around. But I did go up to the Haas end, and there was no sign of Ayo Komatsu at that point either. But I have seen Jonathan Wheatley chatting away with Alan Permain, two of the newer team principals on the grid as well. So that's the Sauber team principal talking away to the Racing Bulls team principal, and they both go back years to their time together at Enstone with what was at times Benetton when they were both there. And it was a really interesting press conference we had this weekend with three team principals, because one was Laurent. Meki is obviously facing the media for the first time, but he was next to Komatsu and he was next to Wheatley as well. And I took a photo of it because I was like, they are a sign of like the changing of the guard here, aren't they? Yeah. Yeah. You're kind of just down a Toto of the rest. But there's been so much turnover in terms of team principals, and there's some really talented leaders now, but a lot of them have this engineering background, and that's what we were seeing on that sofa. And again, with Permain getting the job at Racing Bulls, it's another engineer who's getting the leadership role. So seeing a real shift in that sense. Yeah,
like, for example, another engineer like Ayo Komatsu, I saw in the television coverage, I saw Ayo Komatsu having a chat with James Vowles, and I thought that was interesting too. But circling back to Red Bull and Laurent Mekies as the new team principal, his first first race, the sprint race, he gets a win. But Chris, I want to ask you about the whole vibe down there now? Are you know, that's one of the things I was looking forward to, is to see how Max Verstappen was in interviews and how the team is. How does all that feel now that I mean, look, they've never had another team principal in the history of Red Bull until this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. This is the first race that Red Bull has entered, and Christian Horner has not been the team principal of it. It's strange, isn't it? But to be honest, I've been kind of surprised at how relaxed the vibe is. Max did seem pretty open, pretty reflective. I think it is helped by everybody. I will add this: it's an atmosphere within the paddock. They've just had 2 weekends in a row without a race, and it was a welcome breather after 17 weeks and 12 races to start the season. Just to get that little window. I think a lot of people came back a bit more refreshed for these 2 races before the summer break. So it wasn't quite so touchy anywhere in the paddock. But we've seen Max be very short with his answers before, seen him be pretty closed off, almost a bit punchy with some of the questions he gets and not wanting to answer them. He was the opposite on Thursday. He was really open. He was really chatty, explaining his viewpoint of how things were right now, of where he wanted the team to be heading, of his relationship with Laurent, saying he gets on very well with him. Said some nice stuff about Christian too, and says his relationship with him hasn't changed, and he's obviously achieved great success. There was a lot of actually quite nice and calm stuff said, where I wasn't quite expecting it. I thought Red Bull were going to be far more defensive. The only thing that we haven't really had is, until that press conference, is Mekis really facing up to what has happened on track. So that's why I want to hang around right now where I am at Mercedes to see if he comes out, because I want to get his reaction to getting a win under his belt with the first race he was part of, and also now going from 4th tomorrow and being in the mix again. But just how the actual nuts and bolts of a weekend are playing out for him at the first time at a team that expects to be running at the front.
You won't have seen this, Chris, because I'm keeping an eye on the sort of F1 TV. There was a lovely moment just about 10 minutes ago where Alan Permain, Liam Lawson, and Lauren Mekis were all chatting. And sort of high-fiving about how qualifying had gone. Obviously, it's gone well for Lawson and Hadjar. Everybody's got a new job. Permain was kind of, looking far more relaxed than he usually looked. So yeah, it was a chance for them to. I do think this is a new era, and I think that these guys are the guys that have been under the Horner cosh, as it were, as the team boss. They just seem, even Yuki, like I said, gave a very long interview after he got after the sprint race, just explaining how the car's going and all the rest of it. He just seems so much more open, and as you say, Max seems more relaxed. It just seems like a cloud has lifted a little bit.
Yeah, and the reason I think it has is not necessarily just because of Horner being in charge as such and that changing, because there's been a lot of very nice things said. Paul Monahan, actually, who's one of he's chief race engineer at Red Bull, was saying that it came as a shock to him, and he was very sad because he's worked with Christian forever, and obviously they've had huge success, and he really wasn't expecting it, and it was to him it was like a blow for him to leave. But it was the uncertainty, it was the off track, dare I say, distractions, but discussions, the kind of the term used is circus quite a lot, isn't it, around some of these teams, and it was that aspect that I think was putting people on edge and grinding people down and being difficult to handle at Red Bull. And that is something that was really notable that Mekis talked about yesterday. He was saying there's not much that he's seen that he needs to change or wants to change, but it was almost a throwaway comment that he said that they're going to try and reduce the outside noise. Now, that is a marked change from the past, 18 months, maybe longer. And I think in many ways a sensible one. Not great fun for us lot, chasing news stories and trying to talk to people and loving controversy and things. But I think it is what Red Bull needs right now. It needs a bit of a quiet, calmer time.
Well, and also when you think about it, you talk about the Shark Tank. Horner has always been a player in that, and the face of Red Bull, and very good with the media and spreading stories. And Helmut, kind of the opposite. I think the last part of the puzzle for the new era will be when Helmut goes and retires, because he will still be kind of putting stuff in the Austrian media and doing what he does. But I think this whole new era is going to be much more of a jovial, fun, Frederick, Wheatley, Val's kind of era where, there'll be competition, Toto included, but I just don't see it as the sort of way that Christian. I guess what I'm saying is Red Bull will soon be a very different team, and a very new team, given who's left the team in the last 2 years.
Yeah, interesting. Hey guys, let's get our last break in real quick. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the sprint race that we haven't really touched on. You're listening to Speed City F1, back after these messages. Hey Chris, I know why you're not getting any interviews right now. It's because Bob Varsha's not here for you to
That's true.
Yeah, that's always the way, isn't it? But I'll admit, it's also, I've positioned myself thinking, right, let's get Laurent. And it does mean I'm not running around quite as much because I don't want him to walk out. It's not a massive walk for me to Red Bull. And I'm not sure how many people know he's in there. So I'm in pole position for once.
Plus, once you've done that hill twice, you don't want to do it a third time.
Oh no, I'm definitely staying on the lower level. On the top level, there's a few drivers wandering around, but it's the engineering stuff going on up there. So anyone who leaves their motorhome is I can grab them before any guests get to them, and I help them then. If I do a walk and talk interview, actually they're sometimes quite grateful because it means they don't get cornered quite as easily.
I saw a comment from Joe at Oyster Bay. He said there's a tan line around the track and it looked like engines were giving way. Yeah, I saw that. And it looked like the engines were losing smoke or something. Did you guys notice that?
That's the car's bottoming. So it's the
compression.
That's what it is,
of course.
Yeah, the compression is so big here into Eau Rouge and up the hill. Yeah, the plank that is bottoming out so much, and that is what makes it so sketchy sometimes for them as the car's bottoming out. But also, it's why teams have to run the cars at a higher ride height here than at other racetracks, because you don't really think of it as particularly bumpy, but it's compression that's the problem at high speed and with the elevation changes. So that's what you're seeing everywhere. Quite often you'll see it even like on a corner or a curb, and you'll think, "Well, has something just gone wrong?" And it's just a car bottoming out.
Yeah. Joe also said, Joe Vorshabay says, when Behrman has a clean lap, it will be glorious. Yeah, that feels like Behrman right now, that can be super quick, and we'll see how that goes. What else we got here? All right, here we go. Come back.
I'm Liam Lawson, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Good on you, Liam Lawson. Nice qualifying today, right there with Isaac Hadjar, and finishing P9 in qualifying. But I said we were going to talk about the qualifying. I just want to touch on one thing that you guys were talking about earlier. Alan Permain, now the team principal for the Racing Bulls team. I saw an interview with him that Lawrence Barretto did, and I had not seen much of Alan Permain, and he was quite a humble guy. And I just did a Wikipedia on him while the interview was going on. And he's 58 years old, but he's been in Formula One since he was 22. He started his career as a test electronics engineer for Benetton in 1989 as a 22-year-old. So that is a long career in Formula One.
He's a lifer.
Yeah, that is a lifer in Formula One. Chris, how well do you know him? How much have you spent time with him?
I'll admit, not massively, because partly, as you say, he's been here around so long that he had a lot of very strong existing relationships with media that were, dare I say it, much older than me. When he started in 1989, that's the year I was born, ladies and gents. So, I kind of came in as one of those who was just kind of almost like looking up to him, but he was also never in a leadership role that meant you speak to him that often. So he was the sporting director at times, chief race engineer. So he was very much one of the key management pieces at Enstone, as it was either Renault, Lotus, or Alpine. But he wasn't normally the guy talking. That was going to be your team principal or your Flavio Briatore. Speaking of team principal, by the way, quick aside, Oliver Oakes is here in the paddock right now. He walked through. He's here in his role as team principal of High Tech. He walked in while we were on a break a little bit ago, actually. But he was heading up to the top end of the paddock, so he's obviously got a meeting planned somewhere up there. But I'm not sure he will talk on record at the moment. But it will be really interesting to kind of hear what's been going on in his world since Miami and he walked out on Alpine. But anyway, I digress. That's the fact that we haven't had Permain in a team principal role is the reason he's not someone we've dealt with a lot, or I've dealt with a huge amount personally. And when he then went to Racing Bulls at the start of last year, I believe is when he began, they obviously had two chiefs in that sense. They had Lauren Mekes as the team principal, but they also had Peter Bayer as the CEO. So having two meant there were two people that I could target if I wanted to speak to people or interview people, and that pushed Permain down again on that kind of priority list. So I'm going to have to get my elbows out a bit. Like we know each other loosely, but I don't know how willing he's going to be if I just approach him with a microphone. Whereas I'm still pretty hopeful from what I've seen from Lauren Mekes, who we've had on the show a number of times, that even though he's now wearing Red Bull gear, he will still be chatty.
Yeah, hope so. Hey, so let's talk about the sprint race, because it's a little concerning to me, because if I'm correct, there were only 4 overtakes in a 15-lap race, and it's Spa, and that surprises me a little bit. But and I know we got some rain coming tomorrow, but Greenie, what about you? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it was all over after the Camel Straight, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah,
Verstappen was one and done. That was it. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a concern, but but Spa with a sprint race, it's always. I don't think it's a good place to have a sprint race, to be honest, because Spa has always been, because it's the longest track, a tactical race. So you want to choose your time to get in and out without the traffic. You don't want to get in a midfield pack. So these are all strategy, if you will, and interest and intrigue from a much longer race, which you don't get to see in the sprint, which is another reason why you wouldn't have seen the overtakes. Most of the strategy goes on in the pit lane choice and the tire choice at Spa, and obviously the weather. So don't be worried too much for tomorrow, given there's weather, given it's a much longer race. I think you'll see more action.
That's why I have the experts here. Exactly. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, Johnny's nailed it there. It was obviously being a race with no pit stops, you don't really get a high amount of degradation. We didn't get any interruptions with safety cars because no one wants to damage their car before qualifying. But also, it's a track where if you don't have the right setup, you're either quick in the first or the third sector. Sorry, the first and the third sector, or the second sector here. You're rarely quick across all of them, because the first sector and the third sector are mainly flat out high speed sections. So you want low downforce. The middle sector is when most of the corners are. So you want high downforce. And going into that sprint race, McLaren had gone with the high downforce setup. You had Verstappen on the low downforce. And that meant once Verstappen took that lead, he was impossible to pass because he had such great top speed. But it meant that you didn't get a fight because the McLaren just couldn't physically get close enough to the Red Bull. Now, flip side, if Verstappen hadn't taken the lead, then Piastri would have disappeared into the distance, because in the middle sector, he'd have been so much quicker. He'd have pulled too far away for Verstappen to come back at him, and you'd have watched that gap grow. So weirdly, it ended up close just because of the different setups they'd gone for, but not allowing any kind of exciting racing as a result of that. But flip side is now going into tomorrow with the rain forecast and the fact that it's when you've got to factor in tyre degradation as well and more strategy, like Johnny says, then we've got differences that have changed and a bit more convergence in terms of the setup approaches, which weirdly then actually can mean that you get better racing because the DRS effect is more normal, like we see at another track, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think like Johnny's nailed it now, that it should be very different and much more action tomorrow. Plus, the drivers themselves just take more risks when there's 25 points on offer for a win rather than 10. If you're running in 11th place, you're trying to pass the car for 10. It matters tomorrow. If you're doing that today in the sprint, it didn't, because you weren't going to score in 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not only that, let's not forget that the weather that you were talking about earlier, Chris, is that we could have potentially spotty showers here and there. And the Spa is just, it's so big. It's famous for, it could be raining up at at one part of the track and dry and sunny at the other. So we just never know what we're going to see tomorrow, but I am excited for it. Let's talk about that a little bit, Johnny. We just got a couple of minutes left. Talk about tomorrow. What are you excited about?
I tell you what, this will come from left field, but I'm really excited about the team's championship and the chances of Haas. That sprint race has put them 1 point behind Aston Martin, 2 points behind Racing Bulls, and 6 points behind sixth place Sauber. So if Haas has a double scoring points day tomorrow, potentially, they could go from 9th to 6th.
That's true. That's very true. That's a good one. Yeah, we talked about during the break to the YouTubers, but yeah, the the point standings, 5th to 10th is 62 for Williams, 41 for Sauber, 37 Racing Bulls, 36 Aston Martin, 35 Haas, and 19 for Alpine. I mean, that is, Chris, when's the last time we've seen a half of the grid so tightly packed?
I couldn't tell you. I will admit, because even you think to last year, it was so tough for Sauber, wasn't it? They were nowhere last year, and it was only once that they scored, I think, in Qatar. So there was clearly a weak team on that occasion, whereas now we don't have that anymore. I will admit, I left my station because we were getting towards the end of the show, and I was feeling bad that we hadn't got anyone on to interview. So I did head to Haas, but Komatsu's now deep in engineering, trying to make sure that they capitalise on the pace they showed today, but also the starting positions are not bad. Oh, typical. Now Laura Mekis has come out, hasn't he? And I missed him. The starting positions are not bad for Haas. So by being there, like just on the edge of the top 10, they've got a chance with both cars. And as was it Joe that was saying it, that Behrman is quick over one that, quick and race trim as well. So either way, in that sense, definitely want that. No, so I tell you what, I should have stayed put tonight because I've completely missed Lauren Mekis here. I'm going to get the shortest question and answer into him, I reckon. Oh, he's going to do a photo. He's got to do a photo with a big fan. It's Mattia Bonotto wanted a photo with him. Laurent, can I ask you one question? How's your day been with a win to start it?
We go tomorrow because I really need to go home late.
There you go. I made him late. So we'll get him on tomorrow's show.
Hey, good effort, mate.
Yeah.
Tenacity's still king.
So technically, we did have him on the show, or was that his PR?
Yeah, that's official.
Okay,
that was him. Yeah, that was the shortest answer ever, but it was one. And how late in the show did I leave it to get that on? The groundbreaking interview with Laura Mekis that was talk to me tomorrow.
Oh, that's great, Chris. Oh yeah. Well, look, we got plenty to look forward to tomorrow. We got the McLaren's out front, of course, but we don't know what's going to happen. Could be the weather. We have no idea. I'm looking forward to seeing Charles Leclerc starting on second row P3. I mean, with the upgrades, we don't know what's going to happen. They really haven't had a lot of time with these new upgrades, so they had to jump right into a sprint weekend. So we'll see what happens there. So there's plenty there to get excited about. And like you said, Jonathan, we got the Haas team, but we also have the Racing Bulls in good position and Yuki Tsunoda in good position. Alex Albon in good position. So we have a ton to look forward to tomorrow, and everything gets started tomorrow morning on our coverage on ESPN at 8 a.m. Eastern for our pre-race show. And then the race right there on the same channel here on Channel 81, and then followed by our post-race show right after that. So I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today, but thanks to you, Jonathan Green. Thanks, Chris Medland. Good effort out there today.
And I promise an interview at least one tomorrow. I promise at least one. And some rain. We've got some rain coming.